Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 33 male, got married last year to my amazing wife, Mara, 32 female. She's warm, brilliant, down to earth, and everything my parents were not expecting me to marry, which is where the problems really began. But this story actually starts years ago with my older sister, Natalie, 35 female. Natalie has always been the golden child. Perfect grades, piano recitals, debutante balls, private school, Ivy League, the works. She followed the playbook that my parents, especially my mother, laid out for her, and they rewarded her accordingly. 5 years ago, Natalie got married to a guy from a very wealthy family. Think old money, country club membership since birth, private jet to Aspen for a ski weekend, rich. My parents paid for the wedding, a $100,000 affair that was basically a royal wedding minus the tiara. Black tie, live orchestra, designer dress, a literal castle in Scotland that they rented for the ceremony. Imported roses flown in from Ecuador, 10-tier cake. It was featured in a bridal magazine. They gushed about it for months. No one sent Natalie an invoice. Now, fast forward to me and Mara. We're not flashy people. I run a tech startup. She teaches middle school, and we live in a modest but cozy house. When I proposed to Mara, we knew we didn't want anything extravagant. Our dream wedding was intimate and personal. A garden ceremony, a farmhouse reception with string lights and a bluegrass band, and a menu with comfort food and barbecue. We didn't want gold leaf menus and ice sculptures. We wanted laughter, dancing, good food, and love. Still, weddings are expensive. When we got engaged, my parents approached me and said they wanted to gift us the same amount they gave Natalie, $100,000. They said, "It's only fair. We want to support you the same way we supported your sister." I was genuinely surprised, but grateful. I clarified several times that the wedding would not be like Natalie's. It wouldn't be formal, it wouldn't be black tie, and it wouldn't be lavish. They said they understood. They said it was my day and they were just happy to be part of it. And for a while they played nice. They signed the checks when the vendors needed deposits, approved the invoices, and showed up for the planning meetings, albeit reluctantly. My mother wrinkled her nose at the barn venue, asked if we could upgrade the catering, and side-eyed Mara's dress when she saw a picture of it. My wife wore a vintage lace gown she found secondhand, which looked stunning but didn't have a designer label. But we got through it, or so I thought. The wedding was wonderful. Beautiful weather, heartfelt vows. Mara's dad gave a touching speech that had everyone in tears. My mom stayed quiet most of the evening, and my dad, well, he drank a lot. They left before the cake cutting, saying they had an early flight. I thought maybe they were just tired. Maybe it was emotional for them. I didn't read into it too much. I was on cloud 9, married to the woman I loved, surrounded by friends and family. 2 weeks later, a thick white envelope arrived in our mailbox. No note, no card, just a cold, formal, itemized invoice. Total, $67,866.72. At the bottom, in my father's blocky handwriting, "Since the event did not reflect the standards or expectations of this family, we are requesting reimbursement in full. Please remit payment within 90 days. I laughed at first. Literally out loud. I thought it was a joke, a sick one, but a joke. Mara thought it was a prank, but it wasn't. I called my father, still not fully convinced it was real. He answered like he was expecting my call. His tone was dry, clipped, like he was discussing a business deal. He said, and I quote, "You hosted what can only be described as a low-class picnic, and you want us to foot the bill? That was not a wedding. It was a glorified barbecue. You embarrassed this family." I reminded him, again, that he had agreed to fund this wedding knowing exactly what it would be. That there was no deception, no bait and switch. We had meetings, shared budgets, sent vendor quotes. He replied, "Yes. Well, we hoped you'd come to your senses before it was too late. Clearly you didn't." I was shaking with rage. I told him to never contact me again. I called my sister to see if she knew what the hell was going on. She sighed and said, "Honestly, I'm not surprised. You know how mom is about appearances. The wedding was kind of cringe. I mean, denim jackets and dancing to country music. What did you expect? She said the word so casually, so condescendingly, that I saw red. I hung up. Mara was in tears, completely humiliated. So I did the only thing I could think of. I went to the bank, took out a personal loan for the full amount, and sent my parents a check with a post-it that said, "You never have to worry about being embarrassed by me again." And then I blocked them. Phones, email, everything. We moved cities a month later for Mara's job. We didn't tell anyone where we went. For the past 8 months, life has been quiet, peaceful. I've been paying off the loan, slowly, and Mara and I have finally started to breathe again. Until last week. I was working from home when I heard loud banging on our front door. I opened it, and there stood Natalie, flustered, crying, holding her phone. Apparently, our mom had collapsed from kidney failure. She's been in and out of the hospital and now needs long-term dialysis and possibly in-home care. My dad is overwhelmed. They don't know how they'll afford it, as care is extremely expensive, and I need to step in and help taking care of my mother, apparently. I stared at her in disbelief. She said, "Whatever happened between you and Mom, she's still your mother. You owe her." I asked her, do I owe her the way I owed her $67,000 for a wedding she agreed to pay for, and then rescinded? She didn't respond. I said, "You stood by while they humiliated me. You justified it. And now you want me to drop everything and play nurse?" She said, "This isn't about that. This is about family in need. Your mother needs you." I told her, "No, she needed me to be her son. She failed at that. Get out of my house. Don't come back." She started screaming, called me selfish, said I was heartless, said my mother cried every night about losing me, that my father had paid the price for his mistake, and that it was time to forgive and help. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just shut the door in her face. Now I'm getting calls from relatives I haven't spoken to in years. My uncle messaged me, "I heard you turned your back on your sick mother." What kind of son does that? A family friend left a voicemail saying, "She may have made a mistake, but she gave you life. You only get one mom." And yeah, that voice, that guilt, it's still in the back of my mind. But here's the thing. I spent years trying to be enough for my family, trying to be worthy of the kind of love and support they gave Natalie without a second thought. I smiled through the insults, laughed off the jabs, invited them into my life over and over, only to be told I was an embarrassment. I gave them a chance, many chances. When they sent me that invoice, they didn't just take my money. They made it crystal clear that love, from them, comes with a price tag. I'm finally living a life where I don't feel second best, where I don't feel like a disappointment, where love is unconditional. And I'm not going back to being their scapegoat just because life got hard. So Reddit, am I an a-hole for refusing to help my sick mother after everything she and my father did? OP is not the a-hole. The second OP's parents sent OP that invoice, they made it clear they viewed his wedding as a business transaction, not an act of love or family support. OP paid them back, with interest, emotionally and financially. Now that they need him, suddenly they want to rewrite history and pretend everything was fine? No, OP doesn't owe them access to his life just because they're facing consequences. Actions have repercussions, even for parents. And now let's hear community's opinion. That wedding invoice wasn't just petty, it was cruel. You were clear about your plans. They knew it wouldn't be a copy-paste of your sister's castle wedding, but they waited until after everything was done, after the photos and the vows and the joy, to drop that financial nuke on you. That's not disappointment. That's sabotage, not the a-hole. And honestly, you sound remarkably restrained given what they did. Not the a-hole at all. I love how your sister calls it, not about the past when it suits her. But it is about the past. The past where your parents tried to humiliate you and sabotage your marriage. The past where she justified it and shrugged it off. People like your family only care about family bonds when they're broke, desperate, or sick. You're doing the right thing, protecting your wife, your peace, and your dignity. Natalie and your parents built a family dynamic where love had to be earned with obedience and image. You broke that cycle. That invoice was their final test to see if you'd crawl back. You didn't. You stood tall and paid your own way. And now they need a scapegoat again. Nope. Let the golden child step up, not the a-hole. And honestly, good for you for shutting the door. That was a power move. When my ex-stepdaughter was 14, she said she wanted to study abroad in the UK, but it would be too expensive. So I told her that I'd start saving for that then, so that we could actually send her there. I opened a savings account the next day for that, and it was supposed to cover tuition, housing, and some allowance. The next year, her mother and I divorced. I still tried to maintain a relationship with her, but that ended quite sour when she said I wasn't her father, and I should stop being involved as if I was. I said all right, and that the ball would be in her court then, and we never saw each other again. That was until 2 days ago. She, 19, came knocking on my door. I invited her in. We sat down and she asked me if I remembered that promise I'd made to her when she was younger. I asked which one, and she said the college fund one. I said I did remember, and she said she wanted some of that money right now to cover expenses, and she'd use the rest to actually study abroad next year. In case you forgot, this was the first time we'd spoken for 4 years. I told her that since we lost contact, I repurposed that money a long time ago, so there was unfortunately nothing there to give her. She was rather unhappy about that, and said something along the lines of, "Figured, you were always full of crap. So much for I'll always be their dad." A callback to when we told her about the divorce, and I said I would still be in her life and she could still call me dad. This obviously upset me, so I responded with the fact that she stonewalled me after the divorce, and reminded her that I wasn't her father like she'd said, so she had no right to complain. She left afterwards, and I got a call yesterday from her mother cussing out for ain't being crap. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It's pretty ridiculous of her to expect that money would still be waiting for her after pretending you didn't exist for 4 years. She made it very clear that she didn't want a relationship after the divorce, and yet she still expects to reap the benefits you promised when you were close. Not the a-hole. She's just being opportunistic. She knew how to find you, right? She could have sent a message to you any time in the past 4 years, but waited until she wanted some cash. Not the a-hole. You tried to maintain a relationship, and she refused. You were not her father. She ditched you for the last 4 years, then came knocking when she wanted cash? Nope, not the a-hole. She is the entitled a-hole. My 48 female grandmother is in her 90s, and during recent chat, the topic of funeral came up. She told me that she and my deceased grandfather had decided that all their money would be divided equally amongst their 3 daughters. If any daughter predeceased them, her share of the money would be split amongst her children. My Aunt Susie passed away several years ago, so her money should be split between her 2 daughters, Anna and Becky. While she was telling me about the provisions in the will, my sister and I will not inherit, as my mother is, thankfully, still alive. My grandmother said, "But Anna won't get anything. All of the money that should have gone to Aunt Susie will go to Becky only." My grandmother explained 40 years ago, my cousin Anna and her then husband Charles asked to borrow money for the down payment on a house. My grandparents had been scrimping and saving for a specific goal, and Charles promised that they would pay it back in time. Anna and Charles were a bit sporadic making payments for the first couple of months. Then a fire broke out in the house. Anna and Charles got out, but the house burned to the ground. Anna and Charles didn't have insurance on the house, so no replacement money. Anna and Charles had to find somewhere to rent, while continuing to make the mortgage payments. Within a year, Anna and Charles got divorced. My grandparents were lenient while Anna and Charles were struggling after the fire, but eventually, my grandfather approached Anna to start making payments again. Anna told him, "I don't have any money. Besides, Charles was the one that asked for the loan, so I don't feel responsible for it." Neither Anna nor Charles ever made another payment to my grandparents. Here's where I feel like I would be the a-hole if I don't tell Anna about this. I don't think that Anna has any idea that my grandparents have held this against her for the last 40 years. Until my grandmother told, I had never heard about it, and my grandmother does not treat her any different than any of the other grandchildren. I think Anna is going to be blindsided. Anna already has a weird inferiority complex when it comes to her sister Becky. She thinks everyone loves Becky more than her, that Becky is everyone's favorite, and is quick to turn everything Becky does into some kind of insult to her. So this will just be one more thing that Becky gets that she doesn't. One more proof that Becky is loved more than her. I think once the terms of the will are read, Anna is going to attempt to guilt the rest of the family into taking sides, and tear us all apart. Also, I feel terrible knowing that I know this about how my grandmother feels, and I am not giving Anna a chance to make things right with her grandmother before she passes. Would I be the a-hole if I don't tell Anna that she has been disinherited? Not the a-hole for not telling Anna, because it's not your business. But encourage your grandmother to do what my grandfather did in a similar situation. He included in the will that he had given my aunt and uncle $40,000, and that he regarded that as their share of his estate. Having that information in his will meant that my aunt and uncle had little standing when they attempted to contest it. Anna might try to guilt the rest of the family, but all of you can point to that line in the testament and say you already had yours. There is going to be drama. The only question is when. If you tell Anna before your grandmother passes, then she might try to make things right. This could upset your grandmother and cause family members to get angry at you for creating drama for your elderly grandmother. If she finds out after your grandmother passes with the reading of the will, then she's going to be upset and cause some family drama. The difference is that you won't be at the center of it if you don't tell her in advance. I strongly advise you to stay out of it. All you can do is create headaches for yourself. Anna borrowed money from your grandparents and never repaid the debt or tried to right the wrong. She created this, not you. Keep this information to yourself, not the a-hole. Don't do it. Anna is not disinherited. She just got her share early. And that's what I would say to her when she tries to guilt trip the family later. I, 23 female, have an older cousin we'll call Wendy, 24 female. Long story short, Wendy has always been lazy and entitled. She never tried in school and was only interested in being a party girl. As a result, she didn't get into university and still lives with her parents. She is very jealous of me because I work hard to get what I have. 3 days ago, my boyfriend proposed. Today I went over to Wendy's house to tell our family. My aunt and uncle were thrilled for me. While our family was congratulating me, Wendy stormed outside. After a while, I went out to look for her, and when I found her, I asked what was wrong this time, and Wendy went off at me, calling me a spoiled, entitled bee, saying I only came over to brag about how much better I am than her, how I was just an attention seeker and didn't care about how miserable she was with her life because I wanted her to fail, and that's why I never offered to help her and stole her boyfriend. Wendy did ask my boyfriend out in high school, but he rejected her because he said she wasn't his type, and I didn't meet him until my second year of uni. I was annoyed at that accusation because I always offered to help her with school, work, help her get a job, after-school activities, etc. Wendy screamed that the only reason I was where I am was because I slept my way to the top. She said it wasn't fair that I got the life and man she deserved. I got fed up with her acting like a victim and yelled at her that she didn't deserve anything or anyone, that if she wanted to blame someone for her life, then she should look in a mirror and blame the person she sees, because no one made her give up all the opportunities she was handed. No one forced her to be a party girl and ignore her education. No one forced her to reject my help or my offers to help find her a job. She started crying hard as I yelled at her, and she fell to her knees. I said that just because she was unhappy with her life doesn't mean I have to be with mine, that she can still turn her life around, but she needs to grow the duck up first and stop blaming me because she didn't get what she deserves. I left after that and went to my parents' house. They said I was in the right and to not worry about it anymore, but my aunt called me and said I was an a-hole to say the things I did, and then leave Wendy on her knees in the yard when she was obviously going through something. Now I'm wondering if I was the a-hole for saying what I did, then leaving Wendy when she was having a breakdown. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Wendy sounds like she's really spoiled. Everyone sucks here. Yeah, your cousin reacted poorly and probably unloaded a bit too much on you. But it does also sound like you went over there specifically to show off and even rub it in her face a bit. Visiting your aunt and uncle and cousin just to tell them you got engaged and leave is very weird. Usually people handle that with a phone call or social media post. No offense, but why would your aunt, uncle, and cousin really care all that much? Also, seeing as you already knew your cousin was upset about your relationship, telling her about the engagement to her face did not allow her the chance to collect her emotions before facing you. I think you need to be honest with yourself. You wanted to rub her face in it, and you probably hoped she would react poorly to it, so you could further drag her down. You were a guest in their home, And you insulted your cousin, your aunt and uncle's daughter. On the bright side, I guess those are 3 fewer plates you will have to pay for at the reception, because they hopefully will realize your behavior crossed a major line. I know I said everyone sucks here, but make no mistake, it leans heavily towards you're the a-hole. Everyone sucks here. You chose to tell her she has no value and deserves nothing. Everyone deserves love. Everyone deserves food. Everyone deserves shelter. You write this as if you're a saint. But guess what? Working hard does not make you better. If she's willing to learn, fine. But you write this as if having a boyfriend, fiancé, magically makes you better. Same with a job. It sounds like she's struggling. A bit of empathy would be wise. You can be done with someone's drama without being cruel. You can decide to set boundaries without being horrible about it. I, female 25, have never really gotten along with my older sister, female 31, Sarah. I hate to use this word, but she's what you would call a Karen. She thinks the entire world has to bow to her feet, and if she says jump, then the whole nation has to jump. She often brags about how bossy she is, and how she always pushed me around during our childhood, etc. She finds it amusing that she was horrible to me. That is all besides the point. It's more to paint a picture of the kind of entitled person she is. I'm not perfect either. The problem is that she has 2 kids, female 4, female 2, and after both of her births, she blocked my entire family each time. The last time she gave birth, she blocked me and told me never to go to her house again, and banned me from seeing her daughters, because on the day she gave birth, I went to babysit her first child, but instead of staying the whole night, I left around 7 p.m. Even though my mom was already staying the night to look after her kids, my sister was still offended that I left to go and take care of my dog, who was home alone. After that, she went no contact with me for a year, despite the fact that I reached out to her to make up, and eventually she came back and we hashed things out. A few weeks ago, I was at her house with my mom and little sister, female 12, Hannah, and my younger sister was not feeling well, but my older sister was insisting that she should play with her kids and entertain them. Seeing my little sister feeling sick and not wanting to play with the kids, I told my older sister to stop pestering Hannah, and that Hannah didn't need to spend every second of her time entertaining Sarah's kids. We ended up in a heated argument because Sarah told me that if we're not feeling well, then we shouldn't go to her house, and that we basically need to spend all of our time looking after her kids. And she brought up the fact that we weren't there for her kids when they were first born, and I told her that it was her fault for banning us from seeing them. She said that we should have still went and looked after her kids because she was having a hard time. I told her that popping out kids left and right was her and her husband's choice, and that we didn't sign an agreement to look after her children. I told her that when I chose to have a dog, I never expected anyone else to look after him, and that he was my responsibility, no one else's, and it's the same for her kids, and I ended up leaving her house. Everyone in my family is on my side, but I don't even care about sides. I just want to know if I'm genuinely a bad auntie. I tried to be in my niece's lives, but my sister just wouldn't allow it. Maybe I should have tried harder. I just don't see how her having children is anyone else's responsibility but hers and her husband's. Not the a-hole. I feel sorry for the kids being stuck in that house. Just remember, it's not their fault either. Not the a-hole. If she wants you to babysit, she should give you money. Not the a-hole. Your sister's on a power trip where she bans you from seeing her kids and unbans you on her terms without fault or discussion. She clearly enjoys to be the center of the world, and now she is pushing her kids to be one too. She is rude, manipulative, and disrespectful. People like her are narcissistic, who only think of themselves and then blame you for their mistakes. You need to speak your mind like that. She will never change, to be honest. Ban her from your life like she did to you. Let her simmer in her own toxicity. A few years back, I decided to go to Japan. My sister Andy wanted to come along. At the time, Andy was 29 female, and I was 25 female. Andy is usually late for everything and has no sense of time. So I told her several times, I'm not going to be late because you aren't ready. She said she understood. The plan was to leave the house at 8 a.m. because LA and the LA airport are always crowded. I barely made it on time for my 1 p.m. flight, even with the extra cushion. I wake up at 6 a.m., get Andy up. She says she's ready to go, so she sleeps in a little longer. At 7:30, I ask her if she's all packed. I find her in her room switching her suitcase, changing outfits, putting on new makeup. She wants to make an omelet and eat it before we go. I remind her our cousin will be here at 8. I'm going to leave when he arrives. She tells me she will be ready. He arrives. She is not ready. I leave after reminding her for almost 20 minutes. She misses the flight. She misses a second flight. I tell her I'm going to go on with the trip, and she can meet me in Kyoto. I flew into Tokyo. She does arrive, but she's pissed. I'm pissed off because she doesn't want to do anything that isn't American. She wants to shop at import stores, eat fast food, karaoke, and nothing else. She tells me she doesn't want to hike, despite paying for tours to Fuji and bamboo groves. We argue. I say, I'm going to do my own thing. Join me if you're up. She's not up until noon. I end up doing my own thing for 2 weeks. We did karaoke and dinner twice. But she refused to do anything out of the ordinary. No ramen shops, no sushi. We also didn't share a hotel room, so I had no way of waking her up to do things she might have wanted to. I went to see some anime stores and she was pissed I didn't wait for her. The day we were supposed to leave, we get into the taxi, and she realizes she forgot a kimono in her hotel room. We wait 5-10 minutes, and she's not back. I call her. She doesn't answer. We are already running late, so I call her one more time. She says she is using the bathroom. 5 more minutes. I call her again. She says she will be there when she is there. I tell her to tell the front desk she needs a new taxi, and I just leave. I barely made my flight home. She had to wait until the next day for the flight. We didn't speak for almost 2 months after that. Not the a-hole. You spent a lot of time planning and putting effort into this trip that you wanted, and your sister didn't seem to care at all about your thoughts or feelings behind it. Not the a-hole. She needs to realize the world doesn't revolve around her, and also needs to realize that some people travel to get different experiences to what they normally have. Just don't ever travel with her again. Not the a-hole. Travel with those that truly enjoy the experience. As a side question, does your sister have trouble leaving her comfort zone usually? Not that it would excuse her behavior, but it may give you some peace of mind over it.